Only 5 more hours until nightfall. So long as everyone can stay alive until then.
This is In the Steele of the Night, one of my favorite episodes of Remington Steele. We're going to use it to talk about closed circle mysteries, those plots that take place within a restricted location where none of the suspects can enter or leave. We're going to talk about exactly what it is that makes this kind of mystery so compelling, as well as the 7 phases that every great closed circle mystery needs. The plot begins with series characters Laura Holt and Murphy Michaels arriving for a reunion of their old buddies from the Havenhurst Detective Agency. Our closed circle mystery has begun, but we can't jump straight to the murder. First, we have to begin by exploring the circle, picking away at the secrets they're concealing and the tensions bubbling beneath their polite interactions. In addition to our series characters, there's arrogant Alan, who seems to be hosting this event purely as an opportunity to show off for his old friends.
Tell me how good I look.
You do. You look wonderful.
30 pounds?
Oh, I'd kill to lose 5.
Where?
Places you haven't seen.
There's Donald, who just can't seem to get enough of the Alan show.
Alan, you have an elevator in your house.
There's sultry Sandy, who won her rich husband by violating her ethics as an investigator.
Anyway, so the next day he came to the office, pleaded with us not to give our information to his wife. Tried to buy me with dinner that night.
Yeah, what happened?
It worked.
Last, there's Carl, who walks around with a big chip on his shoulder and a .38 in his luggage.
38's pretty serious baggage for a weekend in the country, isn't it?
I wouldn't know. Never used one.
Only, perhaps, it isn't his. That night after dinner, the circle gathers to play a game. Best Murder.
A man gets on an elevator on the 10th floor. He's all alone. It's an express. The elevator doesn't stop again until the 3rd floor. When the doors open, he's dead. What happened?
Everyone offers guesses, but no one comes up with the correct solution.
It went from the 10th floor to the 3rd floor. No stops. No people. Was he poisoned?
No.
And right in the middle of the game, our plot gets its first wrinkle. The head of Laura's agency,
Hope I'm not
Remington
late.
Steele, shows up at the door.
What are you doing here?
I was invited.
At this point in the series, Steele hasn't been working as a detective for very long at all. He's just a flashy con man who has assumed the role of the agency's head man in order to drum up elite business. Laura's afraid that a room full of real detectives will eat him alive. Fortunately, there's nothing Steele understands better than playing a part, and so he passes muster for now. The game ends and everyone heads for bed, except for Alan and Carl, who have a noisy confrontation in the drawing room that clues everyone in about the history behind Carl's pugilistic attitude.
You made promises, you didn't keep them. Carl, you were meant to be used. You asked for it. You'd be disappointed if someone like me didn't take advantage of you.
4 years is a long time to wait for restitution, Alan. A lot of anger builds up, so don't push me!
Everyone turns in, expecting that the weekend fun has only begun, but when Laura wakes up in the morning, Alan's neck has been broken, snapped in 2.
Laura, I guess that leaves out you and me. I mean, if we're talking murder.
We are, and it doesn't. Even a 90-pound weakling can break somebody's neck if they know how.
We enter phase 3, confirming the circle's closure. We establish that everyone is a viable suspect and we agree to parameters for the investigation. Usually at this point there's a reason that the police can't or shouldn't be involved, and this, to me, is the crowning feature of a good closed circle mystery. It takes place outside the law and the suspects themselves are forced to investigate. This does 3 things for us. It establishes an added element of distrust and danger. It gives the suspects plenty of opportunities to tamper with evidence, and it puts the whole mystery on a ticking time clock. Eventually, the law will arrive, and when that happens, the suspects need to have the mystery solved. In this case, the characters decide to hold off on calling the police because each of them has something to lose by even being suspected of murder. 3 of them make their living as detectives by maintaining impeccable reputations. And as for Sandy, well, things in her marriage are a little rocky, and she doesn't want to have to call her husband from police lockup.
Now, the only way this would ever work would be if there was somebody on the outside, somebody with no axe to grind, didn't know Alan, somebody we could trust, somebody... Forget that last thought.
Please.
Mr. Steele arrives to save the day, and we launch into the next phase of a closed circle mystery, the investigation.
Where should I begin?
Start with the last person to see the victim alive.
What's that?
The basic rule of detection. The last person to see the victim alive is either a superb witness or an excellent suspect.
We've opened up a line of inquiry. Who was the last person to see Alan alive?
He's very good.
Well, everyone knows who that is. Carl, who was noisily arguing with Alan after everyone else went to bed.
Sure, I hated Alan. You know how the Alan Greevy agency got so big so fast? Alan had me copy every phone number, every file, and every client who had ever done business with Havenhurst. And you know how he thanked me? He laughed in my face. Said he didn't have any positions for people who couldn't be trusted. And then he called good old Donald over here. Made sure he knew what I'd done. By the time I got from Allen's to Havenhurst, my name was off my parking space.
We can now see that each of the little nuggets of information we picked up about our characters during Phase 1 are in fact the beginnings of their suspect subplots. Most suspects in a mystery can be thought of as subplots. The subplot begins when we first learn something suspicious about the character, it continues as we accumulate clues, and it ends when we're sure they're not the killer. Carl's subplot began with his pugilistic attitude and with the gun Murphy found in his luggage. And now it continues with his potential motive for killing Alan on full display.
I didn't bring a gun.
Carl, I saw it.
Miss Holt, would you be kind enough to check Carl's room?
No way. She works with Murphy. How do I know she's not going to plant something?
I'll go.
You? No.
Then I'll go.
Not on your life.
What if we all go?
This is what makes closed circle mysteries so much fun. Every character is right in the mix. Everyone has something to do, something at stake, and absolutely no one can fully be trusted. The gun isn't found and Alan wasn't shot anyway, so we open up another line of inquiry.
What do we do next?
Me? You're asking me? I thought you were going to lead them, guide them, show them how it's done.
And I am. As soon as you tell me how to do it.
Scene of the crime.
How's that?
Scene of the crime. Best single source for conclusive physical evidence is almost always the scene of the crime.
Thanks.
He's dusting for prints? Why is he dusting for prints?
Because it's my dusting kit.
The group tires of crowding into the elevator and begins to split off, beginning the next phase of a great closed circle mystery, rifts and alliances. The circle can't stay a circle forever. Even if they start with a unified purpose, that's going to break down somewhere along the way as characters split up into factions and start zealously pursuing their own interests. Sandy appeals to Murphy for protection.
I didn't kill Alan, but I just know any time now somebody's going to find something that makes it look like I did.
Donald raises some disturbing questions about Mr. Steele.
Oh, lots of dog food, but no coffee. Laura, can I be honest with you? I've been watching that Mr. Steele of yours. And while it's certainly not my place to say, I don't think he's all he's cracked up to be.
And as for Carl, well, he wants a job, and to prove he's worth it,
I found them. On Alan's body. On his neck, to be precise.
we've got a new line of inquiry. What is the source of the fibers? If we can find it, we might find the killer. But meanwhile, tempers are fraying and Laura proposes the group take a break. Murphy can fingerprint everyone to compare with prints that he took from the elevator buttons, and anyone who wants to search for the source of the fibers can do so.
This is not working.
Certainly it is. I think Carl's come up with a solid piece of evidence. Besides, only 5 more hours until nightfall. So long as everyone can stay alive until then.
We've reached the next phase of our closed circle mystery: subsequent crimes. Eventually, all that danger and distrust we've been stewing in needs to boil over into misdeeds on the part of one or more of our suspects. Sandy's subsequent crime is to attempt a little evidence tampering.
I followed her up. And I startled her. Here. Looks like a perfect match of the fibers. She was trying to get rid of it.
Sandy, where's the belt?
We have the source of our fibers, but tensions among the circle have reached a critical pitch, and Donald calls Carl's evidence into question.
What do you mean, says who?
Sandy's right. How do we know where those fibers came from? How do we know Carl didn't come up here, take him from the robe, set her up?
Carl retaliates by spilling what he sniffed out about Sandy's motive. Carl arrived first at the reunion only to find that Sandy was already there, but without a car or suitcases. He surmises that she's been having an affair with Alan, and he's right, but things between them are even worse than he could have guessed.
I'm my husband's second wife. He's been there before. He smells another man. So, what does he do? He goes to a detective agency. What agency? Not Havenhurst, not where he met me. He goes to the Alan Greevy agency. Of course, he took the case. He waited a week to give Robin the good news. Now, you ready for the punchline? He even sent him a bill.
We've got a pretty damning suspect subplot for Sandy, including not just a motive, but physical evidence as well. Is she guilty, or does she just look like it? Well, in many mysteries, we close off suspect subplots all along the way, dismissing characters from suspicion and narrowing the pool of potential killers. But in a closed circle, we often leave several suspect subplots alive so that we can maximize that sense of uncertainty and danger. So the end of Sandy's subplot is still a big question mark. At this point, Donald has had enough of playing detective, and he wants out.
It's a 38. The one I saw in Carl's room.
And at last, we get to hear Donald's motive.
Come on, Donald. Everyone knows about you and Alan. How when you were back at Havenhurst, he used to make you do all his dirty work for him. Took credit for all your accomplishments. Used to tell jokes about you behind your back, sometimes to your face.
Sure, he could ride roughshod over your feelings, but we were a team. If he were here, he'd tell you that.
Team, huh? That's why when he left Havenhurst, he didn't take you with him. Stole every client your agency had, left you the king of nothing.
I said we were a team!
Donald sounds believable, but it's not hard to imagine that Alan's years of abuse finally pushed him too far. There's still one clue to follow up on: the fingerprints from the elevator.
There was one very good print on the stop button. It was a perfect match.
Then we have it. Our murderer, caught in the vice of irrefutable evidence. No denials, no counter-accusations will set this killer free. Please, Murphy, tell us, whose print is it?
Laura's.
Laura swears she's never used the elevator, but it doesn't matter. The evidence is damning. And now we're at the final stage of our closed circle. Time's up. Most closed circle mysteries have a built-in deadline, a point where the circle can't maintain its closure any longer and outside authorities are bound to descend. In this case, the agreed-upon deadline for ending the investigation has arrived, and a profoundly incriminating clue, Laura's fingerprint, has been found. The rest of the circle calls the police, while Laura, Murphy, and Steele take this very last chance to puzzle out the identity of the true culprit. At last, they begin investigating the person they should have been looking at all along, Alan.
Alan, don't be absurd, the man's dead.
And here's where we realize that Alan, like the rest of the characters, had a subplot of his own going, just one we never explicitly followed. He's lost a great deal of weight.
Tell me how good I look.
You do. You look wonderful.
30
Oh,
pounds.
I'd kill to lose 5.
He can't walk upstairs.
Alan, you have an elevator in your house.
And there's also the contents of his kitchen.
Oh, lots of dog food, but no coffee.
But no dog to go with them. All of this paints the picture of a man who is seriously ill and doesn't expect to be around for much longer. But we still need one more thing: Alan's motive.
Alan was always letting us know he was better than us. He invited us here for one final joke.
We've got Alan's motive, and Laura quickly deduces how he committed the crime. First, he set about framing his friends. He He stole the belt from Sandy's robe to use as the murder weapon. He placed the gun in Carl's baggage, then moved it to Donald's. And he transferred Laura's fingerprint to the elevator button. Next, the murder itself. Earlier in the day, Alan must have attached Sandy's belt to the elevator cable, allowing it to sit on top of the access panel out of view. After everyone had gone to bed, he entered the elevator, extracted the belt, fastened it around his neck, and pressed the elevator button. As the elevator rose, the cable jerked the belt tight, breaking his neck. But this wasn't tricky enough for Alan. He set things up so that the belt would tear and be pulled back into the elevator access panel, concealing the evidence of his crime. There's just one more question left. Did Alan truly intend to frame his friends, or just let them know that he was smarter than them?
He might not have found out for years he could have been convicted of murder. That's no joke.
Laura finds the answer in his date book.
The elevator servicemen are coming on Monday. I'm sure they're checking the cables. It's just like him. They'd have found the belt.
Closed circle mysteries are great fun, and if you're interested in writing one, you might want to check out this video next. In this one, I talked about 30 types of environments and communities that could create great closed circles.